MSI is upon us.
You did a little bit earlier.
What? MSI is upon us, guys. We have the best players in the world competing at the. Well, I forgot the place they're competing at. It's in the LMS somewhere.
It's somewhere.
It's actually in the LMS. It's at It's where the Fanghu Buffalo's hometown is what they're performing at. For the playing stage, and then the next stage is it's gonna be in the Fanghu Buffalo area. That's all I know.
The area?
It's gonna be in the LMS somewhere.
Very specific.
So, as Riot likes to put out their best players to watch, which is generally not good. No flame there, obviously. But I think my list is better. His list was terrible when we first started.
We didn't have separate lists. There's only one list here. I don't even know what he's talking about.
So honorable mentions, we'll talk about them before we get to the actual top 10 players to watch out for. I don't agree with one of those. Really bad. But you might want to watch out for them just in case.
I thought we were doing honorable mentions. I thought we were gonna do that right before number one.
Really?
We talked about this before. Whatever. We'll do it now.
Okay, we'll do it his way. No, number 10 is Faker.
I think that Faker's. I'm only putting him out there because again, I don't think he's at the same level as he used to be. But at the same point, we do know that he's capable of a lot of stuff. His flexibility is going to be really useful to the SKT lineup. I think that his ability that's going to be able to shape them into pretty much every sort of
team
type of team. Yeah, again, there's a lot of different ways they can play now. They
can play 1-3-1. They can play split push.
They can play fast paced. They can play slow paced. I don't think they're gonna play fast paced, but they're able to.
So that's the thing, though. I don't really think SKT is gonna play fast paced. And when they've ever played against new teams, they don't really play fast. They've always played slow. Even against international teams, they've never faced because they don't know how to really properly engage on the team that they know how to play against. Like they don't know a very good read on teams that they've never played against.
I do think they tend to play a little bit faster paced against the faster paced teams. They in season 5, I think their biggest thing, season 5 to 6, they were like when they played against faster teams, they used to suffocate them. They used to force them to play at their level.
Back when you
force them to play at their pace. That was back when you could ward around the map and
get a 10k gold lead just by laners.
Yeah, but now the situation is with the lack of warding on top of the fact that all the different changes around the map, they've been forced into a situation where they have to play quite a bit faster paced.
But I think Faker adds a nice little layer to that because he hasn't even shown what he can do in the split. All he's played is like Lissandra and LeBlanc.
I do think, again, he's still one of the best players in the world. I do not think he's in the top 5 for mid laners, maybe. But I do think he's up there at the very least. I do think he might be in the top 5, maybe.
And number 9, I
put him on here.
I want to laugh at this so hard.
It's not good or bad. I think that somebody you need to look out for is going to be Perks. I think that
as Teddy is smashing him.
Well, yeah,
he's going to be 0-5 in lane against the best.
I think that the biggest indicator of how good G2 does is going to come off the back of Perks. I think that he's the biggest kind of problem situation for this G2 lineup because he is the weakest link. He's the weakest player on this team by quite a substantial margin.
Or potentially Promiscu, because they did say on Reddit and Twitter that Mickey X might not play MSI.
He might not play, but I still think, again, even if Promiscu is still worse than him, obviously, but I don't think I'm going to really count G2's go at MSI if Mickey X isn't there. But I'll give credit, Perks is probably the weakest player on this team for the biggest reason as to why I think that is because that his inability to play the standard ADC lanes, I do think he's like the Ezreal and Lucian are pretty much all I've seen him play well. He's had a few good games at Kai'Sa, but for the most part, he really relies on those flexible mage picks, which I thought was going to be a good pick, but if you're not able to play the standard in the slightest, you're not bringing enough to the table because their inability to play the sustained damage in the bot lane is going to be a big detriment when the tanks are coming back into the league.
I feel like Perks' biggest strength is what Faker adds, except Faker's just doing it a lot better, right?
Well, no, Perks isn't flexible because he can't play ADCs.
I mean, he's pulled out like Nico, Yasuo, little stuff like that.
Well,
Cassiopeia bot lanes.
Realize the biggest counter to tanks in the game is going to be ADCs. Like, the sustained damage, mages can't deal with that. But with them coming back into the scene with all the buffs that they're going to get, I think that a big problem is going to be his inability to play the ADC. They're not going to be able to deal with these situations unless he is able to resort into an ADC situation. I'd like to see him do it.
I love Perks. I think Perks is great. I like what he did. He was like, I'm going to take a step back, play another role I don't play mid lane. Aside from the respect aspect, you got to look at this from a game aspect, and you got to look at, man, I think he's a nice player to watch out for, not because of like his skills in ADC. I think he's a nice player to watch out for because of what he can add in the draft phase. You saw them what they could do in the draft phase against OG. That was also because he used to be a former mid laner, so you get that added type of bonuses or ban picks away that he can add that other players don't have. And in key best of fives and in key best of ones, that can add in a nice layer to what a team can actually what's that thing? What's that word called? On the fly. You know, it's hard to predict for that. You just can't predict for that. So I think he'll add in a different aspect than other players will, but I don't think it'll be sufficient enough in laning phase against like even Doublelift. I think Doublelift is better. Probably. All right, so that's off of perks. Number 8.
Number 8 is going to be Corejj.
The former Dignitas ADC.
Yeah, that's the way we should identify him. Huh? I think that Corejj is probably still one of the better supports going into the MSI. I do think he fell off a little bit towards the end, but he is the biggest form of engaging type player that the Team Liquid team has. So it's going to be like their inability to kind of get stuff started it's going to be reliant, like turning that around is going to be reliant on Corejj because he is the best player on this team.
I feel like Corejj, what he does in the NALCS is going to work out a little bit better against international competition because he likes to also stabilize the lane, but also know when to play aggressive at certain moments too. We've seen him like what's the summoner spell that switches
it's not a summoner spell.
It's a rune that switches
it, right?
You're
talking about
Unsealed Spellbook, right?
Unsealed Spellbook.
Yeah, seeing what he can do with that and seeing what certain types of picks he can play, I think he'll surprise a lot of people too. Because remember, TL is kind of going in with very, very, very little expectation. It is bad, but I think Corejj and Jensen, who is going to be a mention later on, I think those are going to be the outliers for the team. And I think that Corejj, from what we saw this split, is going to be something that a lot of these supports are not going to really handle. Like, I think he can compete with Mata. He did it before. I think that he can compete with a lot of the supports actually here. I think he's better than Baolong. I think he's better than, who's the G2 support? Whatever, Promise Q or Mickey X. He's going to be better than whoever they're putting up. So I feel like he's actually very mechanically gifted too. Like, he's incredible with Doublelift too. So I feel like that as a package, and even just him himself is going to be really good as well. So
I think, yeah, again, if you're gonna look out for somebody on Team Liquid, I don't think it's not gonna be Impact or Xmithy or anything. I think Jensen would be decent, but for the most part, it's gonna be Corejj because he's gonna be the biggest impact and decisive reason as to whether or not Team Liquid succeeds at MSI.
Next guys are. What if I just ripped off my jacket and there's my G2 jersey right here?
That'd be weird.
That'd be weird.
And it's not a jacket; it's a sweater.
How do you know that?
Because I see it.
How
so Jankos,
he hates me.
I do. But Jankos was the singular best jungler in the LEC last split.
Completely came back to his first Blood King form.
I think again, he was the what's it called, the driving force as to why G2 became an early game aggressive team. It was also due to the fact that, again, they had a lot of winning lanes, but I think that it came down to the fact that G2, his early game presence in the jungle was allowing them to kind of push the tempo of the game. I think that he's going to have to, again, there's a lot of similar functioning junglers to him in the MSI. I think that it's going to be Ning. We're going to have to see him against Clid, who is substantially better mechanically than him. So I'm going to have to, I do think he's a good player, but I think he's going to struggle a lot against a lot of these top tier players. I'm a little excited again. I think he's a really good player, and we've seen him do really well on the international stage a few times, but if we want to see him do good this time, he's going to have to be slightly better than he was in the LEC, because I don't think his just pure aggression is going to work at this stage, because there's a lot of good players coming into this.
I think when you look at Jankos, you look at how smart he can play the jungle. His whole first Blood King form is nice because I feel like he's somebody who I feel like knows where to gank and put the resources into. Because wherever you feel like he ganks, that lane wins. And I feel like he can do that sufficiently enough based off what the picks he's giving. He has very smart jungle path thing. I feel like he knows where to distribute resources into. And I feel like a lot of players really won't be checking for him because you factor into G2, they all have superstars. So you're going to look at him probably as the weak link. That's how people might be seeing it.
Jankos is definitely, I would say the weak link is still going to be obvious,
but you look at Jankos, and I think that when he pairs up with Wunder and Caps, they actually can play really well together. Also, they added aspect of, I don't think they're gonna play the funnel comp they did, but if they do play that, then he can play in a different role. So I feel like he's someone you might want to actually look out for. Now, this next pick is probably going to be, like, a bunch of people are probably going to dislike the video, but it's Rookie.
It's not, well, I mean, this list isn't in order.
Yeah, but
there's just
having him lower a little bit.
What, it's lowered to what? It's not in order.
They're going to look at it and go 10 players. Oh my god, Rookie's at number 6.
I literally say above the list that it's not in order. That's good enough.
But Rookie's here. See, watching the LPL, there will be more LPL content next split, I promise. I'll do it myself because I'm smart at the game, right?
You're smart at the game.
Mean. Rookie didn't play like his MVP form last year at all. But it was still better than a good majority of his competition, kind of. It felt like what he was doing wasn't the same.
Okay, the problem with it is, I think there's 2 indicators as to why this went different than last year. I think one is the pretty obvious one. He did not play as well as last year. I think that his laning phase, like, I do think he was still playing around the map pretty substantially well, but his laning phase definitely decreased from his level last year. He's not as good as last year. At the very least, he's in a slump, but it's not a bad slump. I still think he's top 3.
He's definitely still really incredibly gifted.
Yeah, he's probably the 3rd best mid laner in China right now, which is still a good place to be, considering there's like 14 to 15,
16 teams.
16 teams. I can't even remember right now.
Considering that Knight, it really gave him a run for his money.
I mean, Knight, if you realize this, Knight was still incredibly good last year. He was still in the top 5, top 4 last year, towards the end of the split, and everybody expected him to be a top mid laner this year. Him being the singular top mid laner was a little bit different than most people expected. He drastically increased.
But it wasn't like too far out of the realm to possibility.
Well, no, it wasn't. I think that a lot of people saw going into this season that he'd be really good. But I think that a lot of the best although he played well last year, his ability to play with his jungler, he's more so functioning as a secondary roaming jungler, has been the biggest reason as to why they've been playing like so well. I think that Doing B is more so functioning as he's laning moderately okay, but that's not his strength. It's more so his extremely smart plays around the map. He's been one of the most helpful mid laners you could probably ask for. He roams around the map constantly. He gets stuff going around the map. If it's like, even if the lane is not going his way, he still manages to get out of the lane and get stuff going around the map still.
And that's why I think Rookie is a player to watch out for, because he was challenged this year, and I feel like he can take that to here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's... Again, he is still slightly worse than last year, but I do think that the level of play has drastically increased this year. So it's a combination of him getting slightly worse and the players getting way better. So
and I feel like playing up against players like Faker and Jensen and Caps will try to give him that edge back, because Jensen and Caps are going to be players that are going to be trying to fight him constantly.
I'm going to be real. I honestly do think that the mid lane players in China might be slightly better than the ones in Korea. I know that's a big kind of drastic. I think they also...
There was Grace in LCK.
Well, I mean, the bottom teams obviously were terrible in
China.
China.
There was BDD.
Well, Chinese bottom teams were terrible too, but they had really good top teams.
Yeah, man.
So
World Elite, man, they started really packing it on.
So did JDG. But...
Or, like, I think Rookie, what he's trying to do this year is trying to do what Faker did last year, trying to play some supportive carry style and let the other guys kind of shine.
I think that, he's unable to play really successful carry with the level of... Like, the way Jahilev plays kind of forces him into that supportive playstyle, because they don't have the resources to devote into 3 players, on top of the fact that Clid's playing aggressive too, so... There's 4 people vying for resources, and it's kind of hard to have every single one of them on a carry every single game. I think that's the biggest. And plus, Lysandre was gigantically meta this year.
So I feel like Rookie's strengths come into, like, mages that everybody else plays into, like Ryze, Syndra, Zoe. I feel like he's the strongest Zoe and Syndra player, but I feel like that'll get negated by Faker and players like Jensen and Caps, who can play those things just as well too.
I'd like to see Jensen and Caps are gonna have a hard time with Rookie. I think Faker is also gonna have a slight it's still Faker. Rookie is still incredibly good.
Yeah,
but I think he's gonna be slightly. It's not gonna be as dominating as last year.
And Khan,
I mean
the Shark. That's what I'm calling him. He only goes one way.
Khan is going to be a big problem with this team. Again, this is going to be another problem, problem child. A lot of these teams have at least one.
Yeah, because you have tanks coming to the meta. We know he does not play tanks the same way he plays carries. So that's a big detriment in draft phase. in like best of 5 scenarios. But in best of 1s, you can kind of like band-aid it up. Maybe you can give Clid or Faker the carries, and they'll do it for you.
So Khan is going to be the big indicator of SKT's success is going to come off the back of Khan because, again, Clid is still extremely mechanically good. I think that, like, if they succeed, it's going to be off the back of whether or not Clid can keep top lane. Like, if Clid can keep the top side of the map going for, like, Khan, because Khan is going to be playing aggressive carries, and there's two people that I think he's going to have a slightly hard time with, which is going to be TheShy, who's probably mechanically better than him, even though I think that Khan is really good, and there's going to be Wonder, who, although is worse on carries than him, is really good at the versatility of playing tanks too. So I think that's going to be a big detriment to Khan and whether or not we can see him succeed. And if he's not able to succeed, that's going to be a big problem for SK2, whose biggest strength is kind of stalling out past the laning phase and getting into that team fighting situation. I think if they can't get to, they're not going to, they might not be able to get to that because of the fact that, again, we're seeing that Khan can't win the laning phase as well as they'd want to.
The thing with Khan is that it's going to be weird deja vu if he performs bad at this MSI and he performed, because he was the reason why last year's King Zone didn't do well. It was his, I wasn't like solely his, yeah, I know it was solely him. It was because he wasn't flexible and just fell off of the face of a map. So, with SKT, do you think this is going to be different this time around?
I think it's going to be a lot better because, again, it's not that tanks are the sole, like, last year tanks were pretty much the thing. This year tanks are just a secondary source. I think they're possible to play because they weren't possible for most of the majority of this year. But the ability to play them now is going to be a big indicator that he's still able to play well. But it's going to be a problem because these tanks are pretty decent into carries. I think, and you have to win the laning phase or they just take over the game.
I think that him and Shy are the best split pushers in the MSI based off their carry potential. But I think, like, Khan, oh man, I mean, he's a player to watch out for because he's also a very, very strong laner too.
I think the reason he's to watch out for is going to be the things that he brings to the map are going to be very indicative of how well SKT is going to do. I don't know if it's him being he's probably the worst player in SKT, to be honest. But at the same time,
so he's better than half the competition.
Well, yeah, he is. On top of the fact that he's a gigantic,
playmaker.
Well, right? He's definitely not a playmaker. He's a big
big old rock.
What's that? No, he's a big. I have a word for it. I know.
You need the dictionary?
I do need a dictionary at this point. Well, essentially what he does is he's gonna be the biggest. The result is gonna vary based off of what he does in the lane phase. That's all I'm saying. I've said it about 4 times. So
he's like a results based top laner.
I would say he's gonna. No, I wouldn't say that. But he's definitely his results are gonna be indicative of how SKT does. But that's pretty much it for him, I think.
And you have Caps.
Caps is.
Really, I think a super strong player.
He's probably the best. He's definitely fighting for that top best Western mid laner this year.
I think he's the best Western player.
I don't know about that at all.
Behind with Corejj.
I still don't even know if he's the best. In my opinion, I think at this point Wonder's better than him on the team.
Yeah, but I think Caps is such a strong individual laner. Like, a lot of people look at the Western mid laners and go, they're not strong enough because of X, Y, and Z reason. When that in reality, that's not really the case. Reason why some of the times their strongest players get kind of like thrown off is because of what like other aspects their team was on. You know, I feel like Caps is a player that can be that sufficient superstar carry that we've seen a lot. We've seen him against international competition. We've seen this guy in mechanics. He's very good. Roaming around the map, he's really good. Like, yes, if you counterpick somebody, yeah, he's gonna lose probably. But it's anybody ever in existence.
Well, I mean, realistically, I think that Caps is still worse than the majority of the Eastern mid laners. I still think that there's probably 2 to 3 from, even though he's the best in the West, maybe I think there's 2 to 3 mid laners from each, like from both Korea and China that you could say are better than Caps. BDD, probably not.
You just don't like BDD anymore.
BDD looked pretty bad this year, but I'm thinking like Knight. We're looking at Doingby. We're looking at Rookie. Rookie smashed him last year, so. And then we're looking at Faker.
This time around, maybe Caps claps him.
Possibly. I think that might be possible with the way Rookie's playing, but
I think like the biggest reason... It shouldn't be a surprise that the Western mid laners can do really well.
I
wouldn't be surprised if he won lane against Rookie at all.
I would be very surprised, actually, because, well, again, it's a big indicator. It hasn't happened yet, really.
Maybe Caps is getting better.
Caps didn't improve this year.
Remember, he just started his career. He can only kind of go up.
He can, but he didn't improve this year. If we look at his, I honestly think he got worse in comparison to last year. I think that he played well this year for the most part, but I do think he was substantially better last split. So, for the most, I would genuinely be surprised if Caps did take over the game. I think that he's good, possibly good enough to, but in terms of just taking over the game in laning phase is going to be a big surprise to me unless there's a pretty substantial amount of jungle proximity, because I don't think he showed that he's substantially better than anybody on this list.
Here's the thing, though, is that I feel like Jankos is going to gank for Caps a lot more than Ning will gank a lot for Rookie a lot more.
Well, we saw how that turned out last year when Broxa kind of hard-camped for him.
He's only getting 1v2 solos.
Well, yeah, it's just, again, I think that the difference between the mid laners was still substantial. I think that, it comes down to the fact that China has way too many people. They have literally, triple the amount of everybody else. And that's just ridiculous.
I feel like Ning will place his jungle pressure in top lane more, because that's where he was. Ning and TheShy had the number one jungle proximity in the LPL.
Well, that's the reason, again, TheShy is just a complete monster this year. That's the biggest reason why they did that.
And you gotta look at it for Caps. Caps has shown that he can take over games, but the thing is that the big thing with Caps winning was that last year people thought he couldn't do that because of the way Fnatic played. Can he do it because of just kind of weaker that they looked? Can Caps take over the game with better players now? Now he has better players around him. So if he loses this time around,
I don't know if I agree with that fully. I mean, Broxa, again, they didn't have an aggressive early game jungler, but Broxa's ability to play on the map was incredible.
Well, because now he has the better players technically this time around.
I don't even think the bot lane is substantially worse than that was on Fnatic.
Kinda.
Yeah, I think.
Well, yeah, this is
we're trying to say that he has a better map, but I think that really a better laning bot lane with
I was gonna say players to suit his playstyle. We know Jankos and Wonders suit his playstyle. That's something he's talked about a lot.
Broxa substantially suited his playstyle. Again, the facilitating mid jungler is something that would work really well with a carry mid laner, where so is a jungler who's aggressive really but also demands resources is not going to function as well. I think that if we're going to I think that's a lot of excuses on Cap's part, saying that the players suit him better, because it's just not true.
I feel like this team's style suits him a little bit more.
I mean, maybe. The fast pace maybe, but the inability for anybody to shock well enough to lead him around the map is going to be a big problem for him.
So Caps is definitely a very strong player, and the next is the legendary support Mata. See, Mata's issue, his biggest problem is his biggest weakness. I think it goes with because a lot of people don't really understand. I mean, if you're Iron or Bronze, you're not gonna understand what Mata tries to do. Gets it's one way, and there's several ways to that path. It's like if you're hiking up a mountain, there's several ways to get to the mountain, but if you kind of stumble and fall back down to your beginning part before you start hiking, that's kind of what Mata is. But it's very, very, very good. He can shock out very well, play make, and when Mata face checks a lot and does those things he's really good at, and he starts failing at it, people start going is he trolling? No, he just kind of failed at it.
No one's good at face checking. That's just idiotic.
But the way he can lead a team around his map and he wards effectively, he plays very well. He's a very strong laner. This is the thing, is he going to be challenged here? Because I feel like he's going to walk over everybody.
I think that the biggest challenge for him, again, is going to be Corejj.
Or himself.
I mean, again, he could underperform, but that's just to say that's for everybody. I think that Corejj is what I would say is probably the most competitive support he's going to face in this league. Because Balong is a pretty okay support, pretty decent, but I don't think he's a superstar.
He's from China. They're all superstars.
Well, no, I think a lot of people like to give him more credit, and because a lot of people see that he did struggle with his self-esteem issues because a lot of people said he got carried, which reality is that he really did. I think he is definitely the weakest player on that team. I don't like to be mean, but he's substantially worse than the rest of the.
Are you saying Looper got carried in Season 4?
Oh, maybe not. I think
you did say that back in the day.
No one said that.
You said Looper got carried by Season 4.
Oh, no, I said that for sure. I thought you said...
Yeah, a lot of people said Looper is the same way that Balong is
Balong does make substantially decisive plays, and I think that decides over a lot of people that he's a really good player, but he is weak in the laning phase. He's not as decisive as the top supports in the league. I think I'd even compare him to probably... Mickey X might be better than him, to be honest.
I wouldn't go that far.
I would not. I would definitely go that far.
Mickey X doesn't have hands.
Well, Mickey X when he's healthy.
It's really good. Really
Yeah, I think that all around, I would say that Mata is his biggest problem is probably going to be
either himself.
I don't want to say himself because that's just again,
like he's just. I feel like there's not going to be much challenge for him beside Corejj.
Corejj is a better aggressive laning support than he is right now. I think that's not been true throughout their careers, but I think the standard right now is. I think that we're going to see Mata struggle in the laning phase maybe, and on top of the fact if they can take over the lane, I think that, which I don't think is going to happen because I feel like Teddy is just substantially better than the double lift.
I feel like every lane Mata's going to be in with Teddy, if they don't lose the laning phase, I feel like the
game is over if they don't lose the laning phase, to be honest. But I think the biggest problem is going to be Corejj is an extremely good and engaging support, and that's going to be indicative of, again, how the game's going to be, but it's not. I still don't think it's good enough. I think Mata's substantially better than him still because he's a better shot caller. He's a better engaging support all around.
He'll literally sack lane, go to top lane, nobody knows where he's at, and then he gets ganks off. Like those little things matter in best of ones that really swing in the tide of a game.
Corejj is a good support, but I think that even then, I still think the marginal difference between the first and second best is just too much right now. I think that Mata's been playing extremely well this year.
Or Mata's a 2v2 with Clid and versus Corejj and Xmithy's 2v2. Yeah. That's going to look bad. So, that's where I have Mata at. I feel like Mata and Teddy's just easily the best bot lane at the...
I don't think it's even close. I think the bot lane is pretty substantial. And speaking of that, our number 2 is Teddy.
Ooh.
I think that Teddy is gonna be one of the best, if not the best ADC at the league and in the region, or I mean in the entire game right now. I think Teddy is probably the best ADC at the tournament, where so is Mata is also the best support. I think this is gonna be a big reason as to why SKT succeeds is because I don't think anybody's gonna be able to stop them. I think that as Teddy's ability to probably, even if he doesn't win the laning phase, he's the best late game ADC too. So you have to be able to close out against SKT or he's going to take over the game again.
I feel like when they give him space, Teddy is the best ADC when it comes to spacing and laning. Like, we saw that SKT, a lot of the fights they lost, the way Teddy spaced himself, they won based off that too. Like, he has incredible spacing. He's got incredible teamfight potential. He's not one of those weird all-in guys that flash on fountains like Jackie Love did back in that final. Holy God, that was hilarious. But I feel like he's just an incredibly great ADC. I feel like he's the most improved player from last year, too. I feel like he got even better than being on Jnr last year.
I agree with that completely. I think Teddy is substantially better. I think it looks a little bit different. His stats might not be as good because he's sharing resources a lot more. But I do think that Teddy is going to be one of the best players at this tournament. He's going to be one of the most impactful players, too. So I think that if we want to see anybody beat SKT, it's going to have to stop the spot lane. That's the only way they're going to beat him. Because SKT, Teddy and Mata are just not going to lose to pretty much anybody. I don't think anybody's good enough to really compare to them.
I feel like if you want to stabilize them, players like Jackie Love and Bao Long can stabilize them. But stabilize, I mean like not dying to ganks constantly, not getting out-traded. You factor in turret plates are going to matter just even more at this tournament because teams are going to know how to effectively push a lead. Because in certain regions, a lot of teams don't know how to really push a lead. These guys are the best that you're offering up. SKT and IG know when to actually push leads and win against them. So like getting turret plates, extra golds, dragon control. Who has better dragon control, SKT or IG?
IG is... Again, I think it's going to come down to their early aggressive play. Might help them get the early dragons, but I think SKT is able to plays around them a little bit more. So I'm going to have to... I don't know 100% who's going to have it because we're going to have to see how those games play out.
And...
The last one, number one is Teddy. Or two.
Oh, I forgot.
TheShy. Yeah. I just looked at Teddy. TheShy.
Bloopers. I don't know what a monster this guy's become. He's like, he has a different form. He turned into Super Saiyan 1, and he's like, I'm going Super Saiyan 2.
I don't know if he's even better than he was Spring Split last year, but it's definitely close. I think he's maybe
So if you had a Super Saiyan for this guy, what Super Saiyan level is this guy at?
I don't know.
Is he at Super Saiyan God? This guy's
no,
like
because
Super
everything past Super Saiyan 3 is lame.
Really?
Yes.
And not canon.
Well, Super Saiyan God is definitely canon.
Oh, yeah. Babe.
Whatever.
TheShy's like mastered Ultra Instinct and then beat Jiren.
That one's lame. I hate
I don't understand. Like, if he loses, this makes no sense. If he loses, he wins the game. because he's that much mechanically gifted and better at other people at the game.
I think the biggest problem is if he loses the laning phase, he wins the laning phase. It's the biggest thing you should be saying, because even if you get the gank stop, because he's not losing the 1v1, except there's only one comparable top laner in the league to him, and that's 369. So I think that there's really...
Or Zoom.
Oh, Zoom is good
Zoom
on
is
carries.
incredibly good.
I would give him that. Zoom is pretty good on carries, but I still think 369 hasn't beat out.
I mean, 957 is definitely better than TheShy.
I said 369.
Dang it, got the wrong numbers. I feel like I've never seen a top laner lose laning phase and then win the game and then do the most damage on the team. That makes literally no sense.
He's been the single best player in the entire world this split. I don't think that there's not going to be a top laner who can stop him on carries. And his versatility, even if even if they don't play him on tanks, they still have Duke for that. Who's
they still have Duke.
But I don't think they're going to play Duke on, because again,
the team looks kind of weird with Duke.
I don't even think they lost with Duke this year, to be honest.
I feel like the team plays differently when they play
Duke.
They
do, because he's completely different. Like, they're not going to get that smashing laning phase, but he's incredibly good at tanks. And if they ever resort to that, which I don't think they need to, because TheShy has been incredibly good on tanks this year, whenever they've put him on it. I think TheShy is going to be... I think he's the single best player going into the tournament, and that's not... I don't think the number one wasn't supposed to be a list, but he is the best player going in the tournament, in my opinion, so I'm kind of glad we have him at number one.
He is literally the best player in China.
Yeah, I think that there's not going to be a comparable top laner to beat him in the lane.
I mean, Impact, if he plays tanks.
If Impact plays tanks, then TheShy is done for, but I don't know. When have you ever seen Impact get played on the tank? Come on.
When have you seen Impact win a laning phase?
When have you they never put Impact on tanks. There's no way. So I think that TheShy is really not going to struggle against anybody besides slightly Khan on a carry, and that's the only person I can think that is comparable to stop him. And even then, I think he's going to either play another carry and neutralize him, or he's going to play a tank and be able to stop him solo.
I feel like that's the thing, though. That's weird. I very rarely seen him lose laning phase and lose the game. And even when he lost, it wasn't even that he lost. It was because he just soaks up so much jungle pressure. Like, he's going to be the one getting ganked a lot. Because everybody's going to attack him. Everybody's going to go top lane. And then Ning knows that as well. So it's going to be up to IG to stabilize their other lanes while Ning and Shy sufficiently hold off the jungle pressure. Because I feel like TheShy is a player that's just so incredibly good that a lot of players are just going to lose just based off that. He's going to beat them just by laning phase, probably.
I think it's going to come down to laning phase, and everybody's going to be into a situation where they're going to want to be able to stop it, so they're going to send the junglers up, and I think that's going to be a big reason. If SKT does end up losing the IG, it's going to be based off the top lane, because there's really not... Colin is not going to be enough to stop him.
But Clid is better than Ning.
Clid is substantially better than Ning. I think that is definitely the case. So we'll have to see how it plays out, because it's going to be jungle proximity, in my opinion. And both of the junglers are going to be forced into a situation where they have to play around it.
For the love of God, do not give this guy Silas.
Yeah, and forcing somebody out of their normal playstyle because your player is so good is a good reason as to why somebody should be ranked number one, because everybody is forced into a situation where they have to play this way now. They're playing out of their comfort zone because this guy's just too good for them. So, you got anything else to say about him?
For the love of God, give this guy Rise or Silas. You just lost the game.
I'd like to see him back in Korea. That'd be pretty cool to me.
Honorable mentions. We forgot to mention that.
Right. I think
Wonder.
Wonder is definitely gonna be the best. I think he's gonna be the best Western player coming into MSI, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the few top laners that I think is comparable to the Eastern top laners. I think he could definitely, at the very least, he can play tanks and stop the bleed that TheShy is going to try.
I feel like he's just a really weak version of TheShy.
I don't think he's anywhere near the same.
He's a weaker version of Khan.
I don't know. He can definitely play. Khan can't play tanks, where I think Wonder definitely can.
I feel like Wonder's not going to be a liability or a weak point for them.
Yeah, I think that he's not gonna make a gigantic impact, because the top laners going into this tournament are just a little bit too good. I don't think he's as good as them, but at the same time, I think he's able to neutralize them. So I think it's going to be a big reason as to why G2 could succeed, is because there's not a gigantic deficit in the top lane like we're going to see with Team Liquid.
I'm going to say Jensen. I think a lot of people won't be talking about him going into the event. I feel like if you look at the Cloud9 runs that they did have really well, it was like Jensen put a lot of work into that. And I feel like this is going to be his chance to show that he really is a good Western mid laner. I feel like you want a player like him over Bjergsen because Bjergsen, I feel like, he takes the more safe approach, where I feel like Jensen, if you need that aggressive play, that really nice, timely, good 1v1 to get your team that lead, I feel like Jensen will give you that over Bjergsen. So I feel like just for this tournament, I feel like Jensen is going to be not looked at as good.
I mean, I don't know why you brought up Bjergsen like that. I also don't agree with that statement at all, but fair enough.
I feel like if you look the way Cloud9 got far, it was like Jensen put a lot of work into that, and I feel like Team Liquid, they lacked that last year at last year's MSI.
They did, because I think Paul Belcher played substantially worse than he usually did.
Ooh.
I think they are going to be looking stronger going into this tournament because they're stronger all around the map.
If Jensen can hold off Caps and hold off Rookie,
I think he can hold off.
Get clapped by Faker.
I don't think he's going to lose to anybody in the laning phase at this point. But at the same time, I don't think he's going to win any of the laning phases.
Now, what if he goes out and tweets he's going to clap Rookie?
I'd be pretty cool.
And then Rookie plays a Kali. God Lord.
Rookie can play anything at this point. I don't care.
But I feel like Jensen is gonna be a really good player. I feel like people are going to say Corejj and Doublelift. Not really Doublelift. I feel like Jensen is going to be the player, and Corejj are going to be the substantial reasons why the upgrades, as the reason why TL possibly make the top 4. Another guy we don't really know too much about was Rather. He made Griffin's finals last year.
I do think that, again, if we based off of last year, because I have not watched the LMS enough. Again, there's just not been too much
content.
No, there's not been enough for me to see. Again, I don't like their timing on their games. I can't rewatch them. There's not an English broadcasting thing for.
You can possibly subscribe to their YouTube channels and see like highlights and stuff like that. That's like the best you can do. That's like the best you can do.
I want the actual games themselves.
No, we want highlight reels.
If anybody can tell me a way to possibly watch the games, I'd like that, because I do want to eventually watch the LMS games. If we want to, again, I think the biggest portion of it is going to come down to what's it called?
See, the problem with Rather last year was that he was getting subbed out, so you never really knew his true strength. So if he can be just... See, the problem with the mid laners going in are flexible. They can play multiple different styles. Like, if he can do that, I feel like Flash Wolves can be pretty well.
They're going to make it out of group stages, maybe, if he's good enough. But, again, they still have a weak Betty in the bot lane.
You don't like Betty?
I don't.
He hates every player on Flash Wolves ever. And Ellie, he didn't like...
I hated NL. I actually really liked NL during the Jinx meta. And that's the only time I ever liked him, because that's the only time he was ever good.
I hated Flash Wolves when they had MMD. That guy was actually awful.
Well, Flash Wolves have produced pretty terrible. They always have 2 to 3 good players, and the other ones are horrible. That's always been the case with Flash Wolves.
Their new guy, their new top laner, I thought he was good last year. Hanabi, I thought he was fine.
We're going to have to see. Again, I think that Flash Wolves is going to make an impact at the very least.
I feel like... Can they be that Korean killers that they were a few years ago?
I don't think so, because, again, they've lost a lot of their star players. Maybe they got another one in Rather, but I'm going to have to see that. I think that Maple's falling off. I think that's a good reason. I think replacing him was not bad.
Maybe they realized, or maybe it was just like they felt like Maple had hit its peak, because a lot of players that are in Maple's position with teams hit a peak, and then you're not going to reach that peak ever again. It's like Bjergsen peaking, and then TSM getting rid of Bjergsen because he peaked. Well, Bjergsen's never lost that peak. So... You felt like Maple lost that peak a long time ago.
I think Maple had a pretty substantial amount of but I never thought he was a superstar. I think he had a few phenomenal fizz games that put people off and said, hey, he's actually incredibly... But I don't think he was ever at the level of...
You thought it was like casters pushing that narrative of like he was...
Well, I think a lot of people came down to Taiwan being an equal region to the rest of them. I think they were for a long time. But at the same time, I think that it all came down to the weaker region besides the top teams. And on top of the fact that I think that they just, all around the map, I never think they improved as a region going from Season 5 on.
Yeah. They were trying to play the way the game is played now back then, and then they never actually adapted. Because they were always trying to make like proactive early game moves with vision, and that's why it worked out for them. But I feel like Flash Wolves are a team you don't want to underestimate. Jankos... Wonder, Caps, Rather. I'm trying to think of any other players. I wouldn't say Doublelift because that's just not... I mean, I don't think he's going to feed like he did last year, but that's pretty much all I got to say. Oh, Clid! We didn't touch on Clid. If SKT win the event, it's probably going to be because Clid is just so much better than his competition.
I mean, I think I don't know if there's a comparable besides Jankos that is going to compete with him.
Oh, like Smithy.
I don't think there's a comparable agent besides Jankos that's going to compete with him, really. I think that...
You have Ning, right?
Yeah, probably not.
Ning is flexible.
Ning is not terrible. I hate that I keep making it sound like I don't like him. I think he's a good jungler.
But Ning only ganks for top,
But at the same time, I think that people... he was a pretty decent jungler in China last year. Just wasn't flexible in the slightest. And then his World's Final performance gave people a lot of bad indicators. Like, oh yeah, he did pretty... Like, his stats weren't bad in China, but I think that's a... Like, it was more so him playing around his extremely strong laners that made him look decent.
I mean, was he really challenged in that final? People need to realize and ask themselves that. They weren't really challenged.
Well, I think that a big I mean, he won that finals for them.
Yeah, but I mean, they were still going to win it regardless without him.
I think that a big reason as to why I think that Clid is going to be a big impact player is because early game aggression is the way the game's played right now, and the only other jungler that's extremely good at it is going to be Jankos. Jankos is going to be the decisive. Whether or not G2 succeeds is going to come off the back of whether or not he can compete with Clid's better mechanics and better early game aggression.
Xmithy, I feel like, I don't want to downplay the guy, but can he be clutch? Can he be clutch enough to help TL reach top 4? TL 4th.
As long as they keep him off Sejuani, maybe.
Gosh.
Honestly, I don't think he's just good enough to compete with the competition here. I think he was not even a top 4 jungler at the last in NA, honestly.
I feel like Svenskeren was better than that at a certain point here.
NA, Svenskeren was better towards the end of this season. Optic had 2 better junglers, which I still upset about that.
That tilts everybody. God. Another factor in, I think the biggest player that's going to be a detriment to everybody, that's their team, is going to be Impact to Liquid.
I
can't imagine a dude where this... He lost to a jungler from the TCL that just started this year. And this is like every single game except for like one.
Who just started this year?
Like Broken Blade.
Blade's been playing for a while, dude.
I mean, but like Broken Blade, like...
Broken Blade was also one of the best players in the TCL when he was playing there. So I don't think it's a big problem to lose to him.
If he can't beat Broken Blade, there's no way he's beating anybody else.
Well, he's not supposed to beat them. He's supposed to not lose to them as hard. And Broken Blade is still incredibly good. I think Broken Blade would definitely give a lot of people a run for their money.
But Impact loses to TheShy, he will get absolute... Good lord.
So I think that if we want to see Team Liquid succeed, which is almost indefinitely like not going to happen, we're going to have to see them, if they want to get a good semifinals, let's hope that G2... Like, I don't know who they're going to beat.
Let's hope they make 4th.
They can get... Their 4th is expected. Anything less is not.
I feel like they need to not lose games to Flash Wolves.
Yes, that's going to be a big indicator of whether or not they make it past groups.
Because those little small games like that, where you lose little games like that early on, really matter toward the very end. Like, depends on, playing tiebreakers and stuff like that. So
that's pretty much it. You have anything else you want to say?
Nope, this is the year of IG. They're going to win this event, and then they're going to win the next split, and then they're going to win another Worlds.
I don't know about that.
I'm just kidding. They're probably going to win the next summer split in China.
See you later.
Yeah. I don't feel like... No, SKT might win this event. Nah, this is the year of IG. Who are we kidding?